bloody awful English cricket. What's an American exile, Marxist, to do? Stay quiet and write travelogues? No way. Here comes anyone but England, anyone but England. That should put the Scarsdale cat amongst the MCC pigeons. Watch 'em flap their wings. An American Marxist writing about cricket. Geez, it puzzled us on the left. Imagine what it did to those creeps. Well, that was one hell of a book. Well beyond the boundary. All the cricket nuts are nodding away. We know what we're talking about. And then there was Liz. And then there was Liz. Down from Oxford town, Oxford town, Oxford town. Everybody's got their head bowed down. Don't even shine above the ground. Everybody's down at Oxford town. Down from Oxford town, as bright as a button, her and Mike met on the fringe. Liz's mother and father were worried for a time. Who can blame them? Does she know what she's letting herself in for? Hell yes, a lifetime of loving and commitment, that's all. Millions of leaflets drafted and printed off. Countless arguments on the way forward. Friends coming in, friends going out. From everywhere between Hackney and Karachi, Palestine, Swaziland. Too many demonstrations to name. Connections with comrades all over the world. Hindu articles, 18's family. Shared obsessions with Bobby Dylan, Muhammad Ali. It was good, wasn't it? Give me Tom Paine, give me Bill Blake. Give me Moorish culture. Give me flaming fiela, flamenco. Give me poems and an occasional smoke. Every occasion deserves a good smoke. And then there was Liz. 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 There's about another 11 verses, all right? It's 2, actually. There's plenty more to tell, that's for sure. This was someone who just couldn't stop. If there was a cause or a struggle to be waged, you could count on Liz and Mike. They were the first ones to jump on at the bus stop. They would stop the war and countless deportations. New labor in shiny suits and the war on terror. There was fighting and making up with friendly publishers. Sometimes it took them both to realize maybe they'd made an error or two. Then Mike took a deep look inside and out, trying to make sense of what his life would mean. There were secrets to be outed, not shouted about. Then there was if not for myself. This here was part of the story of a friend of ours. And as Sonny Terry said, gone but not forgotten. So here's to you, Mike, from all of those around here who loved you. We love you still, and we always will. We love you still, and we always will. Come on then. We love you still, and we always will. Come on. We love you still, and we always will. One more. We love you still, and we always will. Come on. We love you still, and we always will. One big last one. We love you still, and we always will. One more. We love you still, and we always will.
Thanks very much, Steve. And Steve will be back later on to do the second verse.
You lucky buggers.
Now, Mike wrote in so many different places. I don't, if there's anyone in the world who could list all of them, you would sort of suddenly find that he would suddenly sort of tell you, oh yeah, I do a weekly column in a sort of in a periodical in Burma or something like that. But one of the places that he wrote in, which was very prominent, and a column that was very well read, is in Red Pepper. And so I'd like to introduce you to the editor of Red Pepper, Hilary Wainwright.
Well, comrades, I think the best decision that Red Pepper ever took was to have Mike Marqusee as its regular columnist. And we still can't replace him. So if there's anybody here who's willing to volunteer or got suggestions, please tell me or James O'Nions, who's going to speak later, who's a co-editor, because this isn't a sort of one editor job, it's several, and we constantly need more. So, I mean, this event is amazing, and in a way it makes you miss him even more. And I suppose I've been thinking about him and missing him, especially just in the last few days, and missing that kind of long pub lunch that we always used to have when there was some momentous decision or some kind of problem, or the problems of the Socialist Alliance, or the madness of starting Red Pepper when most magazines of the left were in decline. You could have that lunch with Mike. That I was sort of just dwelling on it, and the image that came to mind was of a kind of those sort of, not symphonies exactly, but those pieces of music that begin quite slowly and in despair, and sort of with a kind of low tone, and gradually with bits of the flute and bits of the guitar, they sort of liven up and they end up with a sort of cascade of ideas and sort of variety of tones. And that's what it was with Mike. I mean, on the way, there was always this kind of humour that would just cheer things up, and sort of, it was often driven by indignation. I mean, you can imagine him, you know, finding the defeat of Ed Balls quite funny, but also he'd be raging about what Ed Balls did, and the Labour Party's sort of echoing of the austerity programme of the government. And that kind of combination is something that James, who will talk later, captures particularly well in his obituary in Red Pepper, where he said that the thing about Mike was that he recognised the moments, of course, where we can decisively shape events. But he also had this recognition that we need laughter, beauty, and sheer enjoyment of life to carry us through. And I really miss the fact that I didn't hear him sing. I thought Steve's kind of song was brilliant, so I can't imagine Mike trying to sing that. So I was trying to think of just values that I learnt from Mike and wanted to carry with me. And there were two that I'll just summarise very quickly before the shadow appears. And one was his ability to be principled, but at the same time undogmatic or sectarian. And this was very much linked to a commitment to organise consistently all the time with the values of the society you're trying to build. So never separate means and ends. So he was indignant about dishonesty, indignant about the sort of instrumentalisation of comrades, sort of exploitation of them. And I particularly saw this in working with him on the socialist conferences, which there are a few grey hairs here that people will remember them in the 80s, which was really testing the possibility of an open-ended collaboration between socialists inside and outside the Labour Party, inspired by Tony Benn and Ralph Miliband, another two people we miss hugely. Some people inside the Labour Party, I don't think any of the people here, but were a bit suspicious of this hybrid inside and outside. But Mike really, really relished it. It was completely suited to his non-sectarian and generous-spirited socialism, and we really need that spirit now. So the other... sorry, I've got a bit too many documents. The other thing that I really wanted to carry with me and valued and was influenced by with Mike was the depth of his politics, you know, a real sort of personal depth that was rooted in an empathy with fellow human beings. And this was sort of brought home to me when I was chairing a brilliant but completely exhausting presentation he did of this book, The Price of Experience, which I think is the best defence of the NHS, and I think Unison should buy, you know, hundreds of copies of it and distribute it both to Labour MPs and to their organisers. It's really, really brilliant, precisely because it comes from this depth. And I just wanted to very quickly read one kind of statement which just seemed to me to sum up this depth, because what he effectively did was convey the difference between a service run for profit and a service run for people, by conveying what such a difference actually feels like, actually physically feels like and emotionally feels like. So he says, one of the less pleasant features of having hematological cancer is the need for periodic bone marrow tests, which involve the insertion of a needle into the pelvic bone. I've learned that the longer the doctor takes in applying the anaesthetic, the less the pain. And an extra 15 minutes makes the difference between the excruciating and the just about bearable. Under financial pressure, that extra 15 minutes will become a luxury. The cuts mean, quite brutally, more avoidable pain for more people. And that sort of, you know, thinking while he was having this absolutely excruciating pain, what that meant politically, you know, really sums up the depth of Mike's politics and how it pervaded his life and drove his commitment. So in his own obituary, he commented on Tony Blair, this is the last point, that Tony Benn, sorry, this is completely opposite. Tony Benn's was a socialism of the heart as well as the head. No one who listened to him or worked with him could doubt that, and that was exactly Mike, and we must carry his values with us. But though we've lost him, and we've lost all that we've heard about tonight, about his personality, he did leave us the books and the essays as real resources, and I think we must really use those. And I think that, you know, we'll never forget that laughing smile and that deep chuckle as we read. So I just want to say thank you for that, Mike, and you are irreplaceable.
Sorry to be the looming shadow, but we're going to have to be very, very quick, otherwise we're going to end up losing some of our speakers. The next speaker is somebody who is quite capable of making a devastating critique of the whole history of Western capitalism, the need for socialism, and the need for rapid change, all in 3 minutes. Is my great friend and